The anime market is very saturated right now. There are like a million anime releasing constantly. But in a sea of slop, there's always a few anime that rise to the occasion and become overwhelmingly popular. Jujutsu Kaisen, Solo Leveling, Spy Family, popular anime from more recent times that have blown up in popularity. The main question I'm asking is, would Dragon Ball Z be the cultural phenomenon it is today if it was released today? Let's quickly time travel back to the 1980s and 90s, the years when Dragon Ball's popularity spiked all across the globe. The manga quickly rose to the top of the charts for Shonen Jump, outdoing other famous shonen like Fist of the North Star and JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. The reason it spiked the charts was primarily due to the anime releasing around the same time. This made it so that for nearly the entire rest of its run, it was at the top of its game, and after it ended, it left a huge gaping hole in Shonen Jump. You can even tell from this chart that Shonen Jump has never fully recovered from the ending of Dragon Ball in 1995. But the manga isn't the important part. The manga is not why Dragon Ball got popular worldwide. That can be blamed on the anime. Dragon Ball's popularity absolutely exploded when the anime dubbing rights got pushed out to different countries worldwide. America was able to capitalize on this when Funimation created a studio and produced a few seasons of Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z alongside a couple of movies. This is what got us the most popular lines in history.
Vegeta, what does the scouter say about his power level?
It's over 9,000.
Wrong.
Originally voiced by Brian Drummond as Vegeta and Ian James Corlett as Goku, a lot of American and even Canadian kids grew up with this dub until episode 68. But none of this would have been possible without probably the sole reason Dragon Ball's popularity grew so large in America.
We promised a party at 99. It starts here.
I'm gonna whip your butt!
At 4 o'clock, Sailor Moon gets our engines going.
Right.
Reboot keeps the pace at 4:30.
Let's get busy!
Dragon Ball Z cranks it up a notch at 5 o'clock.
Let's turn up the heat! Solid!
And the real adventures of Johnny Quest crash the car at 5:30. Questions?
Toonami's block was originally an afternoon time block, airing from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. in the best time zone on the planet on one of the best cartoon channels on the planet. This would ensure that kids would be home from school, pretty much done with any homework or playing outside, and be inside to watch the newly dubbed anime. Toonami showed tons of other anime, but none are more known than Dragon Ball Z on that block. Soon after initially airing, Funimation hired a new cast of people to finish the show. With Sean Schemmel as Goku and Chris Sabat as Vegeta, and essentially everyone else in the show, we had the final cast to ever play these characters in English officially. The original guys did go up to the Buu Saga, but to be honest...
But you still don't compare. No one compares to me.
You're wrong, Boo. I'm destined to destroy you.
They weren't as great as the newer dub voices. Dragon Ball had a grip on the world in the late 90s and early 2000s, making the show much larger than it ever was in Japan. But this wasn't just due to America. No one can forget about one of the most crucial pieces to the puzzle, the place where Dragon Ball still reigns as king. Dragon Ball's popularity in Latin America cannot be understated. It is so massive down there. There are stores based on Dragon Ball Z, food trucks, wall graffiti. It's so big over there. When Goku vs. Jiren was airing in Japanese, the government sponsored watch parties like boxing events for people to come watch. Even despite a cease and desist from Toei, they still went through with it, creating some of the most hype clips we've ever seen. The music composer for Dragon Ball Super Broly used the crowd chanting Goku's name during the fight. Goku, 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 as inspiration for his OST in the official movie. Dragon Ball by the early 2000s had already crossed the cultural barrier, but somehow it persisted to do so for decades to come. A big part of this is why it was dubbed in English and Spanish. See, licensing anime from Japan is very cheap. At least it was back in the day. I don't know about now. But back then, it was super easy for a company like Funimation to quickly license Dragon Ball and then dub over it in English. It saved so much that they could use the leftover money to buy the best time blocks, like 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. EST. The same goes for Latin America, but honestly, probably tenfold. America had a great animation industry already, so DBZ had to compete with that. But in Latin America, while the animation industry was probably very good, it was severely cheaper to license this than to create something new or even to license American animation. Therefore, they were able to do exactly as America did almost a whole 2 years before America did it. So now that we have all this information, would Dragon Ball still be popular if it aired today? This is entirely subjective, obviously. I'm also very biased as it's one of my favorite series of all time. Aside from the fact that if Dragon Ball Z didn't exist, most other popular shonen wouldn't either, I personally think it would be very popular. In my eyes, greatness will shine in any generation. This is why I think basketball players like Michael Jordan and LeBron James would play in any era just as good. I don't think it should be tied to when DBZ aired. The manga sold well despite that, and if Dragon Ball Z was given a proper staff and such, the animation would blow a lot of things out of the water. But the main reason I think this is because of Toriyama's writing style. As most of you know, Toriyama didn't plan entire stories out before they happened. He just kind of figured it out week to week. Every time he released a chapter, he wouldn't know what he was going to do next, for the most part. I'm sure he had concepts of a plan, but compared to something like One Piece, it's very obvious he didn't have a good understanding of the skeleton that would make up his series. But this is, in my opinion, Dragon Ball's biggest strength. If Toriyama didn't know what was gonna happen, then none of us would have known either. And the story only got crazier as time went on. I'm gonna explain a situation and you need to pretend to be a 14-year-old living through this. Dragon Ball Chapter 194 just came out. Goku finally defeated Piccolo Jr., a world-ending threat, leaving him alive and riding off on the Nimbus Cloud with his new wife Chi-Chi. He's deemed the strongest under the heavens and, even more crazy, the strongest man on Earth. No one could possibly know what would happen in the next chapter. What crazy event will happen for Goku to tackle next? The TikTok only watchers think the series is over while the Instagram Reels only watchers are still catching up to the first World Tournament. Suddenly, leaks come out a few days before the next chapter. There's a spiky-haired alien man landing on Earth and tanking an attack from Piccolo, and then he flies off to look for Goku after leaving Piccolo scared shitless. Piccolo, the guy that almost had Goku beaten in the last arc. I can see the TikTok theorists already going crazy about this guy, giving him ridiculous names like Bloku or some shit, making up baseless theories about him being an experiment from the Red Ribbon Army to send after Goku. But then, chapter 195 comes out, and this panel shakes the entire internet. Son Goku is an alien. Well, I mean, like, we've seen the signs, but we didn't really think much of it. Things like this happen throughout all of Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z. It's like insane how many dramatic twists between chapters there are. Is Jackie Chun really gonna kill Goku, who just turned into a giant ape? Surely he'll just knock him out, and he destroyed the moon? What does Frieza's final form look like? He's gonna grow like 30 horns and look insanely buff, right? I mean, his second form looked like... Wait, what? This is it? I could beat this guy. Oh. My point being, with Dragon Ball's dramatic writing style, the week-to-week chapters would be absolutely bonkers, more so than any other anime or manga. One Piece has its theorists for the overarching story, and JJK definitely had the week-to-week bangers, but Dragon Ball is almost jam-packed with drama. Aside from this, the way anime is done now is actually far better than how it was in the 90s. Original Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z's pacing was, well, pretty bad. But in this new universe where Dragon Ball Z aired in 2025, it would probably be put into a weekly category. Imagine a studio like MAPPA animating all the intense fighting scenes, or even Toei Animation giving it the One Piece treatment and having insane visuals. It would be mind-blowing to see this week to week with good pacing. And what about the oversaturation of anime? Well, that's the thing. even despite the oversaturation, there are plenty of anime that overcome the odds and get insanely large. Whether it's due to a really impeccable animation team, a well-written story, or some dope-ass fights, these are all things Dragon Ball has. Its story may be a bit simple, but the character writing is masterclass, and that's truly where it excels at. If we could have some anime become juggernauts that have mid characters and alright stories like My Hero Academia and Demon Slayer, we could definitely see Dragon Ball blow up. But let's take the question a bit further. Would Dragon Ball Z be as popular as it is now if it released today? This question is a bit hard to answer. I'd like to say yes because, again, GOATs and legends can defy the odds in any generation, but particularly due to the oversaturation across the planet, it's hard to say. While yes, Dragon Ball Z's writing style is something to behold, with a dramatic twist and good character moments, and yes, the animation would probably be superb, and yes, the fights are still some of the best in all of shonen. Man, what the hell am I talking about? Yes, I think it would still be a cultural juggernaut because it's the full package. One Piece was great writing wise, but it lacked well-paced and choreographed fights until like Wano. Demon Slayer has godlike visuals, but it lacked in the story department like crazy. Jujutsu Kaisen, well actually that's a pretty good show. But even the current front-running juggernaut, Solo Leveling, is mostly just popular because of how well the fights look and Sung Jin Woo's aura farming, which is something that Dragon Ball created. Good story, good animation, overall good show, aura farming, all things Dragon Ball excels at. Of course it would defy the odds and become a cultural beacon. It's Dragon Ball. But that's just my take. What do I know? I'm just a 22-year-old on the internet. I hope you enjoyed the video. This one was a bit different than what I usually do because I genuinely prefer making more question-based videos like this. It's much more fun to talk about this than to talk about my gripes with the show, although I still have a few of those planned. As always, if you enjoyed the video, please consider subscribing as it helps me out a lot. If you didn't enjoy the video, please tell me how much you hate me and my videos in the comments or join my Discord to let me know. That's it for this video. Love you. Bye.